Title: The Power of Poison. The Weight We Carry, How to Recognize. Release and Recover from the Invisible Toxins in Life by Iabo Bello. Narrated by Joanne. Chapter outline. Introduction. The day I woke up tired of myself. A personal reflection. The morning of June 14th, 2025. The stillness. The exhaustion. The realization that something had to change. A soul detox begins. Part 1. Understanding the Poison, Chapter 1. Poison isn't always in a bottle. What is poison, really? It's the slow drip of compromise, guilt, fear, and toxic relationships. Sometimes it looks like love. Sometimes it wears your name. Chapter 2. The ones you drag and the ones that drag you. When we force relationships, partnerships, or even spiritual connections that were never meant to be, we take on weight that was never ours to carry. Chapter 3. When good people are the wrong fit. How we confuse talent with alignment, and the burden of keeping people in our lives just to avoid loneliness or look accomplished. Chapter 4. Poison in the Mirror. The hardest truth. Sometimes we are the ones poisoning ourselves. Through disobedience, delayed decisions, or survival mode habits. Part 2. The Cost of Carrying, Chapter 5. The Hidden Price of Helping. Sacrificing ourselves for others sounds noble, but when the cost is your identity, you're not helping, you're bleeding. Chapter 6. Compromise, the Silent Killer. How little choices over time erode integrity, faith, and joy. What happens when we lose sight of our foundation? Chapter 7. When you no longer recognize yourself, the breaking point. When burnout, bitterness, and burden become your daily meal, and your spirit is starving. Part 3. Detoxing the Soul, Chapter 8. Recognize and renounce calling it what it is. Naming the poison, naming the pain, and deciding to walk away from what once seemed comforting. Chapter 9. The Detox Process. Biblical Wisdom, Divine Guidance, and the courage to rebuild from a shattered foundation. You don't need permission to start again. Chapter 10. The Cost of Freedom, How to Release People, Positions, Patterns, and Pride without explaining your healing process to anyone. Chapter 11. Rebuilding the Foundation. Rediscovering your voice, God's whisper, and the power of alignment. Moving from surviving to thriving. Epilogue. AM. The Journey Begins. A reflection on what freedom looks like. The peace of letting go, the joy of breathing again, the choice to stop drinking poison for good. Introduction. The day I woke up. Tired of myself, it was 6:32 a.m. in West London. I lay in bed, drained from the week, from the year really. And something hit me. I'm tired. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally. It wasn't just about responsibilities or to-do lists. It was something deeper. I had started to feel like a stranger to myself, a girl I no longer recognized. I was carrying too much, but not in my hands. In my heart, in my thoughts, in my soul, there was poison in my life. Not the kind you drink, but the kind you live with. The invisible kind, the slow kind. And I'd been sipping it, day by day, convincing myself it was normal. This is not just my story. This is yours too, if you've ever found yourself stuck, drained, or wondering, how did I get here? This book is not a how-to guide for perfection. It's a detox for the soul. A journey to unpack the burdens we were never meant to carry, and the courage to finally put them down. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Poison isn't always in a bottle. When you hear the word poison, what do you picture? A dark vial? A bitter taste? A deadly substance hidden in a drink? But poison, real poison, rarely announces itself like that. Sometimes it comes dressed as loyalty. Sometimes it looks like a friendship that overstayed its welcome. Sometimes it's a decision you made out of desperation, and now you wear it like perfume. Poison can look like a job that pays you well but kills your spirit, a partner who says the right words but breaks your heart in silence, a habit you indulge in, because it's not that bad, even though it's slowly draining your light. This kind of poison is heavy, and the thing about weight is, over time, you forget what life felt like without it. That's what happened to me. I started dragging people with me who never applied for the roles I was giving them. I partnered with passionless professionals because their profiles looked right. I ignored red flags and chose survival over submission to God. And the poison? It didn't kill me at once. It numbed me slowly, to my purpose, to my peace, to my identity, until I woke up one morning and said, I'm done. Chapter 2. The ones you drag and the ones that drag you. We all know what it feels like to carry someone who was never meant for us. Sometimes it's a friend. Sometimes it's an employee. Sometimes it's even family. But here's the hard truth. Not everyone who enters your life was meant to stay. And not everyone who stays deserves to. I have dragged people with me because I wanted to feel alive. Because I wanted to show the world that I was surrounded, supported, not alone. I confused their presence with my purpose. But here's the problem. When you drag someone who doesn't belong, you don't just carry them. You carry their weight. Their disinterest, their lack of passion, their unwillingness to fight for what you're building, and before long, their poison becomes yours. I remember hiring people who never even applied to work with me. Their profiles looked polished, their experience impressive, so I reached out. But I forgot the one thing that can't be written on a CV, passion. And so I inherited meetings that went nowhere, repeated conversations that killed momentum, resources wasted, energy drained. It took me years to admit that I should have let them go the moment I realized they weren't the right fit. But instead, I dragged them with me, hoping time would change things. Let me tell you something. Time doesn't turn poison into medicine. It just makes the poison stronger. And here's the other side. Sometimes it's not you dragging people. Sometimes they drag you. Into drama, into cycles, into situations that dim your light. They don't even have to be bad people. They can be good people, but the wrong people for your journey. Like a shoe that looks beautiful but never fits. No matter how much you try to stretch it, you'll only end up with blisters. So the question is, why do we keep dragging? Because we're afraid of being alone. Because we want validation. Because saying, yes, I have people sounds better than saying, right now, it's just me. But loneliness with peace is better than company with poison. If you take nothing else from this chapter, take this. Stop dragging what doesn't belong. Release them, and release yourself. Because every step you take with the wrong people delays the right ones from finding you. Chapter 3. When good people are the wrong fit. One of the most difficult lessons I've had to learn is this. Not everyone who is good to you is good for you. Let me explain. There are people in your life right now who are kind, talented, even brilliant in their own way. They show up, they smile, they mean well. They are not your enemies. They are not your haters. They are not toxic in the obvious sense. But still, they don't fit. It's like trying to force a puzzle piece into the wrong slot. The piece itself isn't broken, and the puzzle isn't damaged, but the two were never meant to go together. And the more you force it, the more you bend and bruise what wasn't supposed to be. The illusion of good enough. For years, I worked with some of the best people in the world. Talented, skilled, inspiring. But here's what I discovered. You can work with great people who are still the wrong people for your journey. It's like the saying, someone can be a good father and still a terrible husband. Or a brilliant entrepreneur but a careless friend. People can be excellent in one role and disastrous in another. And when you don't recognize that, you end up carrying unnecessary weight. Because let's be honest, it feels easier to keep a good enough person around than to admit you need to start over. We tell ourselves, at least they're not toxic. At least they bring something to the table. At least I'm not alone, but at least is not enough when it comes to your destiny, the slow poison of misalignment. Here's the problem. With holding on to the wrong fit. It doesn't always explode in your face. It leaks, it drips, it poisons you slowly. Meetings that drain more than they inspire. Projects that drag on because passion is missing. Relationships that look stable on the outside but quietly suffocate you inside. The wrong fit isn't always obvious chaos. Sometimes it's subtle stagnation. And stagnation is just as deadly as destruction. It just takes longer to show. Why we hold on. So why do we hold on to people, even when we know they're not aligned? Because letting go feels like failure. Because we'd rather keep someone in the wrong role than face the discomfort of being alone for a season. Because we confuse loyalty with wisdom. But true loyalty is about truth. And the truth is, good people can still weigh you down when they're not meant for your journey. Choosing alignment. Over attachment, if there's one thing poison has taught me, it's this. I would rather walk with one person who is aligned than 10 who are simply available. Would rather build slowly with the right foundation than build quickly with bricks that will eventually crumble. And I would rather release a good person than keep drinking. The slow poison of misalignment. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about being surrounded by people. It's about being surrounded by the right people. And sometimes the bravest. Kindest thing you can do for yourself, and for them, is to say, you're good, but you're not my fit. And that's okay. Chapter 4. Poison in the mirror. It's easy to point at other people and say, they hurt me, they drained me, they poisoned me. But what about the poison you give yourself? What about the silent ways you've been sipping your own destruction? This for me has been the hardest truth to face, because you can walk away from toxic people. You can quit a draining job. You can set boundaries with a family member. But how do you run away from yourself? When discipline disappears. I used to pride myself on being disciplined, focused, determined, the kind of woman who could weather storms and still stand tall. But lately, I've caught myself slipping. Not in loud, obvious ways, but in the small choices I excused as harmless, the shortcuts I justified, the sins I called not so bad. And before I knew it, I looked in the mirror and thought, who is this girl? I don't recognize her anymore. That's the thing about self-poisoning. It creeps in quietly. One compromise at a time, one delayed decision at a time, one ignored whisper from God at a time, until suddenly, you're living a life you never planned, surviving instead of thriving. The scariest poison, the Bible asks, if the foundation is destroyed, what can the righteous do? That verse used to terrify me, because what happens when the destruction isn't from others, but from within? What do you do when you are the one eroding your own foundation? When you keep ignoring your values? When you silence your inner voice? When you let fear dictate your choices? Self-inflicted wounds cut the deepest, because when someone else poisons you, at least you can see it coming. You can fight back. You can walk away. But when you poison yourself, you don't even notice until it's almost too late. The mirror test. I've had mornings where I lay in bed and ask myself, how many more? How many more times will I ignore what I know is right? How many more times will I say yes when I mean no? How many more times will I compromise just to keep the peace while killing my own soul? The scariest poison is the one in the mirror, because the reflection doesn't lie. The choice to stop drinking. Here's what I'm learning. You don't have to keep drinking what's killing you. Even if you poured the cup yourself, grace means you can put it down. You can repent. You can rebuild. But the first step is honesty. Looking in the mirror and saying, I am poisoning myself, and I don't want to live like this anymore. It's not weakness. It's not failure. It's the beginning of healing, living with yourself. Again, the goal is not perfection. The goal is peace, to look in the mirror and not see a stranger, to lay in bed and not feel crushed by the weight of your own choices, to rise each morning knowing that, even if yesterday was poisoned, today can still be clean. Because the most dangerous poison is the one you ignore, and the most powerful antidote is the courage to face yourself. Chapter 5. The hidden price of helping is holy. It's what makes us human, what makes us kind, what keeps the world from crumbling under selfishness. But here's a truth we don't talk about enough. Helping can hurt. When it's not aligned, not measured, not wise. Because sometimes, the price of helping someone else is the silent destruction of yourself. When helping turns into bleeding recently, I carried a load for someone very close to me. I stepped in, I gave, I sacrificed, because that's what love does, right? But the cost was heavy, heavier than I expected, heavier than I could handle. And one morning, I realized something frightening. I couldn't recognize myself anymore. I had poured out so much of my identity, my values, my integrity, that what remained was just fragments. Helping had quietly turned into bleeding. The thin line between love and loss. The danger with helping is that it often feels noble, sacrificial, Christ-like. And yes, love calls us to serve, to give, to care. But love also calls us to guard our hearts, to set boundaries, to recognize that drowning with someone isn't the same as saving them. There's a thin line between carrying someone's burden and losing yourself under it. And when you cross that line, you're not just helping anymore, you're self-destructing. The cost you don't see. The hidden price of helping isn't always financial or physical. Sometimes it's internal. Peace. You can't sleep at night. Not because of your own battles, but because of someone else's. Clarity. You lose focus on your purpose, your dreams, your assignments, identity. You compromise your values for the sake of keeping someone else afloat. And the worst part? The people you sacrifice for rarely see the cost you pay, because the bleeding is invisible, because you keep smiling while you're slipping. The myth of the strong one. If you're the strong one in your circle, this hits harder. You're the fixer, the helper, the dependable one. People run to you because you always figure it out. But who helps the helper? Who carries the carrier? Who saves the savior? Strength is beautiful, but it becomes poison when it's forced, because strength without boundaries turns into slavery. When helping becomes hurting, I had to ask myself, am I helping them? Or am I hurting myself? And if the answer is the latter, then what I'm doing isn't love, it's enabling. True help empowers. False help drains, and the difference lies in whether your giving is led by wisdom or by fear. The courage to step back. It's not easy to step back from helping someone you love. You'll feel guilty. You'll feel selfish. You'll feel like you're abandoning them. But stepping back doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough to survive. Because if you lose yourself in the process of saving someone else, who really wins? Helping is powerful, yes, but unchecked helping can be poison. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is admit, I cannot carry this for you, but I can walk beside you while you carry it yourself. Chapter 6. Compromise. The silent killer. Not all poison shouts. Some poisons whisper. And one of the deadliest whispers in life is compromise. The first small step. Compromise never begins big. It starts small, almost invisible. You say, it's just this once. It's not that bad. I'll deal with it later. But every little compromise adds up. And one day, you look back and realize you've built a life out of exceptions instead of principles. When foundations crack, the Bible asks, if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? Think of your life as a house. The walls might be strong, the roof beautiful, the furniture polished. But if the foundation is cracked, everything is at risk. Compromise cracks the foundation. Not all at once, but slowly. A lie you tell to keep the peace, a job you stay in, even though it's crushing your spirit. A relationship you excuse, even though it dishonors your worth. Each small crack feels manageable, but over time they spread. And when the storm comes, the house falls. Not because of the storm itself, but because of the silent compromises made long before it arrived. The cost of later compromise often hides behind delay. You know what you should do, but you keep putting it off. You know what decision you should make, but you wait for the right time. I've lived this. Decisions that should have taken me 2 or 3 months dragged out for 2 or 3 years. And the cost? Lost time. Lost opportunities? Lost strength, because later is not neutral. Later is poison disguised as patience. Death by 1,000 cuts compromise doesn't kill in one blow. It's death by 1,000 cuts. Each time you choose convenience over conviction, the cut gets deeper. Each time you silence your inner voice, the wound grows wider. And before long, you're bleeding out without even realizing it. Why we compromise. So why do we do it? Because compromise feels safe. Because standing firm feels lonely. Because we'd rather be accepted by others than rejected for being ourselves. But here's the truth. Compromise never keeps you safe. It only keeps you stuck. The silent trade. Every compromise is a trade. You trade peace for approval. You trade integrity for comfort. You trade destiny for delay. And in the moment, it doesn't feel like a big deal. But over time, the trades pile up, and the weight becomes unbearable. Choosing conviction over comfort. The antidote to compromise is conviction, not perfection, but the courage to say, no more. Not this time. Not at the cost of my soul. Conviction may cost you people. It may cost you opportunities. It may even cost you comfort. But compromise will cost you everything, because when you lose conviction, you lose yourself. And once you've lost yourself, what's left to fight for? A silent killer, no more if compromise is the silent killer, then honesty is the loud cure. Honesty with yourself. Honesty with God. Honesty about what you can no longer tolerate. You don't have to keep sipping the poison of compromise. You can stop today. You can rebuild. You can choose conviction over comfort. Because in the end, compromise may whisper, but conviction roars. And your destiny deserves a roar. Chapter 7. When you no longer recognize yourself, there's a moment in life that no one prepares you for. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or a loud crash. It comes quietly, suddenly, almost cruelly. You wake up one morning, look in the mirror, and whisper to yourself, "Who is this?" Not in admiration, not in confidence, but in confusion, in sorrow. Because the person staring back at you feels like a stranger. The slow erosion of self-losing yourself doesn't happen overnight. It's the slow erosion of your essence. You give a little too much in relationships. You compromise a little too often at work. You silence your voice one too many times in conversations. And before you know it, you're living a life where your reflection doesn't match your reality. It's not that you've become evil. It's that you've become empty. The moment I knew. I had that moment not long ago. After helping, after compromising, after dragging, after surviving. I sat in bed and realized I didn't know this girl anymore. The confident, disciplined, focused woman I used to be had faded. And in her place was someone tired, someone fragile, someone going through the motions. That's the danger of poison. It doesn't just attack your body. It attacks your identity. Until you're left asking, how did I get here? The scariest question. The scariest part of not recognizing yourself is the uncertainty. Am I weak or just exhausted? Am I compromising or simply surviving? Am I still me or am I becoming someone I swore I'd never be? These questions don't come with quick answers. They linger, they echo, and they remind you that somewhere along the way, you've drifted far from home. Losing your voice. When you no longer recognize yourself, your voice is usually the first casualty. You stop speaking up. You stop challenging. You stop declaring what you believe. Because deep down, you're not sure what you believe anymore, and without a voice, you become a shadow, moving, breathing, existing, but not truly living. The foundation shakes. The Bible says, if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? When you lose yourself, that's what it feels like, a destroyed foundation. The question is, do you keep patching the cracks, pretending the house is still strong? Or do you face the painful truth, tear it down and rebuild from the ground up? Rebuilding hurts. It requires honesty. It requires courage. But patching only prolongs the poison. The path. Back here's the good news. Even if you don't recognize yourself today, you are not gone. buried under the compromises. The poison, the exhaustion, your true self is still there, waiting. The confident one, the disciplined one, the joyful one, the resilient one. But she won't come back by accident. You have to fight for her. You have to choose her again. And the first step is admitting the truth. I don't like who I've become, but I will not stay this way. The stranger in the mirror. So let me ask you, have you looked in the mirror lately and seen a stranger? Have you felt the silent ache of losing yourself? If you have, you're not alone. I've been there. I've lived it. But the stranger in the mirror is not your final reflection. You can find your way back. You can reclaim your voice, your values, your vision, and when you do, you'll look in the mirror again, not with sorrow, but with strength, because sometimes losing yourself is the very wake-up call you need to finally come home. Chapter 8. Recognize and renounce. The first step to healing is not treatment. It is not therapy. It is not even prayer. The first step is recognition. You cannot fight what you refuse to name. You cannot heal what you pretend doesn't exist. You cannot renounce a poison you have not admitted is killing you. The courage to see recognition takes courage, because once you admit that something is poison, you can no longer lie to yourself about enjoying it. That friendship that drains you, poison. That job that crushes your spirit, poison. That habit that numbs you instead of nourishing you, poison. The hardest part is that sometimes the poison feels familiar, comfortable, even sweet, but not everything that feels good is good for you. Not everything that comforts you sustains you. Recognition is choosing honesty over denial. Naming the poison. I had to sit down and name the poisons in my own life. Not in vague terms, but with brutal honesty. Drag people who don't belong. I compromise my standards too easily. Silence my voice when I should speak. I say yes, because I fear rejection. Every poison has a name, and once you name it, it loses its ability to hide. The act of renouncing, but recognition is not enough. You must renounce. To renounce is to reject. To release. To say, you no longer have a place in my life. It doesn't mean the poison disappears instantly. It means you've drawn a line. You've made a declaration. Renouncing is spiritual. Renouncing is emotional. Renouncing is practical. It looks like blocking that number, walking away from that toxic deal, closing the door you've kept cracked open, just in case. Renouncing is not easy, but it is necessary. The weight of release. Here's what no one tells you. Letting go feels heavier before it feels lighter. The moment you decide to walk away, your body resists. Your mind questions. What if I need them? What if I regret it? What if I can't survive without this? But here's the truth. The weight you feel is not the loss. It's the poison leaving your system. Detox hurts before it heals. Renouncing yourself, it's one thing to renounce others. It's another to renounce yourself. To admit, I have been poisoning me. Through bad habits, through fear, through procrastination, through compromise. This is the hardest renunciation of all, because you cannot walk away from yourself. But you can walk away from who you've been. You can decide, that version of me is no longer welcome here. I choose better. I choose new. A declaration. Say it with me. I recognize the poison. I renounce the poison. I release the poison. Not just once, but daily. Because poison is sneaky. It creeps back in. Recognition is the daily practice of awareness. Renunciation is the daily act of courage. And every day you choose to renounce, you reclaim a piece of yourself. The beginning of freedom. Freedom does not begin when the poison is gone. Freedom begins the moment you say, no more. Recognition opens your eyes. Renunciation opens your future. Because once you've named your poison and rejected it, you are finally free to start drinking something better. Truth, purpose, love, peace. And that, my friend, is where healing begins. Chapter 9. The Detox Process. When you've lived with poison long enough, you don't just get rid of it in one moment. Like a toxin in the bloodstream, it takes time. Detox is not an event. It is a process, and the process requires intention. Purge the source. The first stage of detox is purging. Ask yourself, where is the poison coming from? Is it a relationship, a habit, a job, a mindset? Cut off the source. Stop drinking from the same cup. You cannot detox and still sip poison on the side. Cleanse the mind. Most poisons don't live in the body. They live in the mind. They are lies we've believed, stories we've repeated, voices we've allowed to sit rent-free in our heads. Detox means cleansing those thoughts. Replace. I'm not good enough with I am chosen and capable. I always fail with every setback is a step toward strength. I can't with God I can. The mind is the battlefield. Win there, and you win everywhere. Strengthen the body detox is not only spiritual and emotional, it's physical. When you eat poorly, sleep little, and neglect movement, your body becomes a breeding ground for poison. But when you nourish your body, you signal to yourself, I deserve health. I deserve life. Drink water. Rest well. Move daily. Small disciplines create big healing. Guard the soul. The soul is sensitive. It absorbs words, environments, and energy. That's why you must guard it. Choose your circle carefully. Limit exposure to negativity. Spend time in prayer, meditation, and worship. What you feed your soul is what you become. Set boundaries. Detox requires protection. If you don't set boundaries, the poison will find its way back. Boundaries are not walls. They are gates. They don't lock everyone out, but they decide who comes in and who stays out. And remember, saying no is not rejection. It is direction. Practice release daily. Here's the truth. Poison has memory. It will try to come back through old patterns, old people, old places. That's why release must be a daily practice. Every morning, ask yourself, what am I still holding that is not mine to carry? And then, let it go, send. Replace the poison with purpose. Detox is not just about removing what kills you. It's about replacing it with what heals you. Instead of gossip, speak life. Instead of procrastination, take one small step. Instead of fear, lean into faith. Your life is a vessel. Empty it of poison and fill it with purpose. The pain of detox, make no mistake. Detox is painful. Your body will crave the poison. Your heart will miss the familiar. Your mind will resist change, but the pain of detox is temporary. The freedom it brings is permanent. A daily commitment. Detox is not once and done. It's a lifestyle. Every day you will face choices, poison or purpose, weight or freedom, death or life. And every day you choose detox, you choose yourself again. The promise of detox, when you commit to the process, you'll notice subtle shifts. Your mind grows clearer. Your body feels lighter. Your heart beats with hope again. Your soul begins to sing. That's the power of detox. It doesn't just save your life, it gives you back yourself. Chapter 10. The Cost of Freedom. Everyone wants freedom, but not everyone is willing to pay for it. Because freedom is expensive. It costs you comfort. It costs you company. It costs you control. And if you are not ready to pay, you will stay where you are, poisoned, heavy, bound. The loss of familiarity. The first cost of freedom is familiarity. The poison you carry often feels like home. Even if it hurts, it's known. And there is strange safety in what is known. When you walk away from poison, you walk into the unknown. That's why many people return to toxic relationships, dead jobs, and destructive habits. Not because they want them, but because they're familiar. But here's the truth. Better an uncertain future than a guaranteed death. The loss of company freedom will cost you people. Some will leave because they no longer benefit from your chains. Some you will have to release because they refuse to grow. And it hurts. Because sometimes these people are family. Sometimes they are friends. Sometimes they are lovers. But freedom requires pruning. And not every branch can stay attached to your tree. The Bible says, "How can two walk together unless they agree?" You cannot carry poison and walk in freedom at the same time. the pain of rejection. Here's another cost. People will not always understand your freedom. They will call you selfish for setting boundaries. They will call you arrogant for refusing to settle. They will call you ungrateful for walking away. But their misunderstanding is not your responsibility. Freedom requires the courage to be misjudged. The discomfort of discipline, detoxing from poison, requires new disciplines. And discipline is not comfortable. It's easier to binge than to heal, easier to procrastinate than to act, easier to say yes than to say no. But every discipline you embrace is a payment toward your freedom. And though it feels costly, it is far cheaper than living in chains, the temporary loneliness. There will be a season where freedom feels lonely. The phone is quieter, the house emptier, the invitations fewer. But remember this: loneliness is not the absence of people. It is the absence of poison. And in that space of stillness, you will meet someone new, yourself. The eternal exchange, every cost of freedom comes with an exchange. Lose familiarity. Gain possibility. Lose company. Gain clarity. Lose rejection. Gain authenticity. Lose discipline. Gain strength. Lose loneliness. Gain peace. Freedom never leaves you empty. It replaces what you lose with what you truly need. The question you must answer. So here's the real question. Are you willing to pay the price? Because freedom is not for the half-hearted. It is for those who would rather suffer the pain of loss than live the slow death of poison. And once you pay, once you embrace the cost, you discover a truth so powerful it changes everything. The price of freedom is high, but the cost of bondage is higher. Chapter 11. Rebuilding the Foundation. The Bible asks, if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? The answer is simple but never easy. Rebuild. You cannot live forever on ruins. You cannot dwell in brokenness and call it home. At some point, after the poison is purged and the weight is released, you must choose to build again. Tearing down. What remains? Rebuilding begins with demolition. Sometimes the foundation you once trusted is too cracked to repair. That's why God allows some things to collapse completely, so you don't waste years patching walls that were never meant to stand. Do not fear demolition. It is not the end of your story. It is the preparation for a new one. Laying new ground. Every new foundation begins with truth. Not borrowed truth, not someone else's blueprint, but your truth. Ask yourself, who am I really without the poison? What do I value most? What do I believe God is calling me to build? Your new foundation cannot be people-pleasing, fear, or compromise. It must be authenticity, faith, and purpose. Brick by brick, when you rebuild, you do not need to rush. Brick by brick, step by step, day by day, that's how strength is formed. That's how resilience is born. Every small act of alignment becomes a brick in your foundation. Saying no when you mean no. Saying yes when you truly believe. Resting when you need it. Speaking when your voice matters. Small things build big futures. Guarding the ground. When you've rebuilt, you must protect it, because the enemy always attacks the foundation. Guard your boundaries. Guard your time. Guard your values. Do not let anyone, not even yourself, compromise the ground you fought so hard to lay. The gift of a strong foundation. A strong foundation gives you something you've longed for. Stability. It doesn't mean life will be easy. Storms will come, winds will blow. But when your foundation is firm, you will not crumble. You may bend, but you will not break. And for the first time in a long time, you will recognize yourself again. Not as the broken girl poisoned by weight, but as the builder, the architect, the warrior who rebuilt from ruins. A new beginning. Rebuilding is not about recreating the past. It's about creating something new. Your life after detox will not look like what it once was. It will be clearer, lighter, stronger. Because you are no longer building on compromise, but on conviction. And this is the promise. What you rebuild on truth will outlast what was built on poison. Epilogue, 7:11 a.m. The journey begins. It's 7:11 a.m. in West London. The city is waking. The sun is slowly rising. And for the first time in a long time, so am I. I am not the same woman who carried every weight, drank every poison, and silenced her voice. I am not the one who compromised herself for comfort, or stayed in what didn't belong. Today, I am free. The peace of letting go freedom is quiet. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare or applause. It whispers in the spaces where poison once lived. There is peace in saying no. Peace in walking away. Peace in releasing what you were never meant to carry. It is a subtle joy, a deep exhale of the soul. The joy of breathing. Again, breathing freely after long years of suffocation is unlike anything else. Every inhale feels lighter. Every heartbeat feels steadier. The poison that once clouded my mind and weighed my body is no longer mine to carry. And with every breath, I am reminded. I chose myself. I chose truth. I chose life. The choice to stop drinking poison. The journey does not end here. Poison will always exist in some form, in people, in habits, in compromise. But I have made the choice. I will no longer drink it. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever again, because the cost is too high, and the freedom, the clarity, the peace, the joy is worth everything. The journey begins. 11 a.m. marks not an end, but a beginning of a lighter life. A beginning of clear boundaries, a beginning of intentional choices, a beginning of walking in purpose, not in poison. And as I rise, I know this. The weight I carried taught me how heavy freedom can feel at first, but also how powerful it feels once I let go. This is my journey. And today, I finally step into it fully. I am still Iyabo Bello, and thank you for listening. Peace.